All right, so here in our submit method, we display a message in the console if we can successfully create a vehicle. But what if there is an error? What if there is no network connectivity? What if the server is down? What if the server throws an exception? We need to properly handle these scenarios and tell our user that we could not create this vehicle. Otherwise, they click the save button 10 times and this drives them crazy. So, here in the subscribe method, the first argument is an arrow function for the success scenario. The second argument is an arrow function for errors. Now here we can have expected or unexpected errors. What are examples of expected errors? If we have server-side validation, some kind of custom validation on the server, we return bad request, right? So in that case, we can check error.status. If it's 400, which means bad request, here we can display the validation errors that are coming from the server. Now note that here I'm not talking about basic input validation like required, string length, and so on. We do all this on the client before the user submits the form. But imagine we're creating a sign-up form. So the user types in a username or an email, and then on the server, we want to see if we have an account with the same username or the same email. This is an example of server-side validation, and we need to properly return an error message to the client. In that case, in our API, we return bad request, and here we check the status. If it's 400, we get that error message and display it on the form. Now, this scenario is beyond the scope of this course because this form we're building doesn't need any kind of server-side validation. But if you're interested to see an example of that, I've covered that in my advanced Angular course called Build Enterprise Apps with Angular. So there I show you exactly how to return error messages from the server and display them on the client. So in this application, we don't need to check for bad requests. Now, whenever we get in this block, that means something unexpected happened. So we want to display a toast notification. First, we go to terminal and install ng2-toasty. Now, the version that I have used, and it works for me, is version 2.5.0. And finally, --save. Now, here we have two unmet peer dependency. So this module requires RxJS version 5.2.0. But if you look at package.json, you can see we are using an earlier version of this module. So I'm going to change this to 5.2.0. Also, here we need Zone.js version 0.7.8. So once again, in package.json, I'm going to upgrade this module as well. Save. Back in the terminal, npm install. All right, beautiful. We don't have any errors. Next, we need to include this ng2-toasty in our vendor bundle, both its JavaScript as well as its CSS code. So we go to webpack.config.vendor.js. And here in the vendor array, I'm going to add ng2-toasty. So this brings in the JavaScript code. And then I'm going to add ng2-toasty/bundles/style-bootstrap.css. So ng-toasty has multiple themes. I'm going to use the bootstrap theme. That's why we have to explicitly add this style shade in our vendor bundle. Now, whenever you add or remove something to the vendor bundle, you need to run Webpack to regenerate this bundle. So in the terminal, make sure to stop .NET watch run. If you don't stop .NET, you're going to get a weird error. So stop .NET and then run webpack --config. And the name of the config file is webpack.config.vendor.js. Beautiful. Now I like to run Webpack to create the main bundle as well, to make sure everything is up to date. Beautiful. And finally, .NET watch run. Now, in order to use this module, first we need to go to app module and import toasty module from ng2-toasty. And then import this module here. So we add toasty module .for root. With this, we can inject toasty service into our components. So let's go to vehicle form component. Here in the constructor, I'm going to add a second parameter, private toasty service of type toasty service. Let's import the namespace. Beautiful. And then back in our submit method, to display a toasty, we call this the toasty service error. We give it an object. In this object, we add the title property, could be anything. The message property. Let's say an unexpected error happened. Now for the theme, I'm going to use Bootstrap. You can read about these options in the documentation of this module. Then I'm going to set show close to true. And finally, timeout to 5,000. So after 5 seconds, this toasty will disappear automatically. Now, in order for this to work, we need to add something to our DOM. So let's go to app.component.html. So this is the main template for the site. On the top, I'm going to add an element ng2-toasty. And here I'm going to use property binding to set its position. So I want to set it to this string top-right. Note that here we have both double quotes, which is for property binding, and single quotes, which is the string value for this position property. Okay, now let's test it. So I'm going to go to our vehicles controller. And in create vehicle action, temporarily I'm going to throw an exception. Throw new exception. Now to save time, I'm going to go to our vehicle form and remove this disable attribute here. So we don't have to fill out the form. All right, and save. Did you see that error message? That is the default input validation that comes in HTML5. When building Angular apps, you want to disable that because we want to control these error messages in our Angular app. So back to our form, I'm going to apply no validate attribute to this form element. All right, now let's test it. Save, and here's our toasty.